Jazz. The day I discovered my husband had betrayed me, I didn't scream. I didn't throw a glass. I didn't call the woman he was secretly seeing. And I didn't ask him why. Jazz. I simply sat there in the darkness of our bedroom, staring at the message glowing on my phone, and realized something that changed my life forever. Jazz. The man I had spent 8 years loving had already decided I was no longer part of his future. The worst part? He thought I had no idea. It was almost midnight when I saw the message. My husband, Daniel, Jazz, was asleep beside me. At least I thought he was. His breathing was slow and steady, and his phone was lying on the nightstand between us. Jazz. I had never been the kind of wife who checked her husband's phone. Not because I didn't have the opportunity, because I trusted him, or at least I believed I did. That night, Jazz. Everything changed because of one simple mistake. Daniel had forgotten to turn off the screen. The phone lit up. A message appeared. I wasn't trying to read it. I swear I wasn't. But when I saw the name, Jazz, my heart stopped. Jessica. I knew Jessica. Everyone knew Jessica. She was Daniel's business partner. The woman who had started working with him 2 years earlier. The woman he always defended. Jazz. The woman he said I was imagining things about whenever I asked why she was texting him so late. I had never liked her, but I had never accused her of anything either. Until that night. Jazz. The message was short, only 6 words. I can't wait much longer. My eyes stayed on the screen, then another message appeared. You promised me June. June. I looked at the calendar on the wall. Jazz. It was May 27. My hands suddenly became cold. I picked up the phone. I knew I shouldn't, but something inside me needed the truth. The phone wasn't locked. That was the second mistake Daniel had made. Jazz. I opened the conversation, and within seconds my entire marriage collapsed. There were hundreds of messages, months of conversations, promises, plans, pictures, accurates. Jazz. And then I found something that hurt more than all of it. A message from Daniel. Once I get the house and the company situation settled, I'll be free. I stared at that sentence. The house, the company, Jazz. The life we had built together. He wasn't just planning to leave me. He was planning to take everything with him. And Jessica knew. I kept scrolling. Then I saw another message. This one was from Jessica. What about Emma? Emma, my name. I felt my chest tighten. Daniel's response came a few seconds later. She'll be fine. She has nowhere to go. I stopped breathing. Now where to go? Jazz. That was what he thought of me. After 8 years. After I had supported him when his business was failing. After I had sold my jewelry to help him pay his debts. Jazz. After I had worked late nights while he built his company. After I had stood beside him when everyone else told him to give up. He thought I had nowhere to go. Jazz. I put the phone back exactly where I had found it. Then I turned toward the window. I watched the city lights outside. And for the first time in 8 years, I felt completely alone. But I wasn't crying. Jazz. Not yet. Instead, I was thinking, if Daniel wanted to destroy our marriage, if he wanted to leave me for Jessica, if he believed he could walk away with my home, my money, Jazz, and everything we had built together, then maybe he had forgotten one very important thing. I wasn't the same woman he had married. I was the woman who had helped him build his entire life. Jazz. And if he had been planning my downfall in secret, then I could make my next move in secret too. That night, I made a decision. I wouldn't confront him. I wouldn't beg. Jazz. I wouldn't fight for a man who had already chosen someone else. I would let him believe everything was going exactly according to plan. Jazz. And then Abby would show him what happens when the person you underestimate becomes the person you should have feared losing the most. That was the beginning of my sweet revenge. Jazz. And Daniel had absolutely no idea what was coming. Daniel and I had met 8 years earlier in a small coffee shop. I was 28, he was 30. Neither of us had much money, but we had dreams. Yaz. Daniel wanted to build a successful company. I wanted to create a stable life with someone I could trust. When we met, he made me laugh. That was the first thing I loved about him. He wasn't rich, Yaz. He wasn't famous. He wasn't even particularly confident. But he had ambition, and I believed in him. A year after we met, we got married. Our wedding wasn't extravagant. We didn't have hundreds of guests, Yaz. We didn't have expensive decorations. But I remember looking at Daniel that day and thinking I had found my person. We started our marriage in a small rented apartment. Daniel worked during the day, Yaz. I worked too. At night, we would sit together at our tiny kitchen table and talk about the future. He would tell me about his business ideas. I would listen, Yaz. Sometimes he would become so excited that he would spend hours explaining things I barely understood. But I loved seeing him dream. I believed in him. When his first business failed, I stayed, Yaz. When he lost money, I stayed. When he wanted to start again, I supported him. There were nights when we couldn't afford to eat at restaurants. There were months when we had to count every penny, Yaz. But I never complained, because I believed we were building something together. Eventually, Daniel's second business started doing well, then very well. Within 5 years, everything changed, Yaz. We moved into a beautiful house. We bought better cars. We traveled. We became financially comfortable. Everyone thought we were lucky, Yaz. People would look at us and say things like, "You two have the perfect marriage." And I always smiled, because I believed it, at least I did. Until Jessica entered our lives, Yaz. She joined Daniel's company as a business partner. At first, I didn't think anything of it. She was smart, confident, ambitious. Daniel respected her professionally. That was all. Or at least, Yaz. That's what I told myself. Then the late-night meetings began, the weekend phone calls, the sudden business trips, the secretive conversations. Whenever I asked questions, Daniel became defensive. Yaz, you're being paranoid. She's just my business partner. Do you really not trust me? That last question always made me feel guilty, so I stopped asking. I told myself I was being insecure, Yaz. I told myself successful businesses required sacrifices. I told myself marriage required trust. But somewhere deep inside, I knew something had changed. Daniel had changed, Yaz. He no longer looked at me the way he used to. When I talked, he listened with half an ear. When I asked about his day, he gave short answers. When I tried to plan a holiday, he said he was too busy, Yaz. But whenever Jessica called, he always answered. Sometimes he would leave the room. Sometimes he would whisper. Sometimes he would smile at his phone. I noticed everything, but I said nothing, Yaz. Until the night I discovered the truth. After finding those messages, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed until morning. Daniel woke up at 7. He turned toward me. Morning, beautiful. I looked at him, Yaz, the same face, the same voice, the same man. But suddenly, I didn't know him anymore. Morning, I replied. He kissed my forehead. I almost flinched, almost. Then he got dressed and left for work, Yaz. I watched his car disappear down the street. And I realized something. Daniel thought I was still the woman who trusted him blindly. He thought I would cry when he left, Yaz. He thought I would beg him to stay. He thought I had nowhere to go. That was his biggest mistake, because I knew something Daniel had forgotten. I knew exactly how much of his success belonged to me, Yaz. I knew which accounts I had helped manage. I knew which contracts I had reviewed. I knew which clients I had introduced. And I knew something else, Yaz. The company he was planning to build his new life around wasn't entirely his, not legally, not financially, and definitely not emotionally. I had spent 8 years helping build it, Yaz. And now I was about to find out exactly what I had been building. The next morning, I didn't confront Daniel. Instead, I went to work. I sat at my desk, opened my laptop, and started investigating. Jazz. The first thing I did was review our finances. Daniel had always handled the major business accounts, but I had access to our shared financial records. I opened everything: bank statements, Jazz, property documents, investment accounts, business agreements. I spent hours reading, and the more I discovered, the angrier I became. Daniel hadn't just been planning to leave me, Jazz. He had been preparing for it. There were transfers I didn't recognize, payments to accounts I had never seen, business expenses that didn't make sense. I printed everything. Then I created a folder. I called it Truth. That folder became my secret weapon. Every suspicious transaction went inside. Every document, every message, every detail. I wasn't planning revenge yet. I was collecting facts, Jazz. Because I had learned something important. When emotions are high, people make mistakes. But when you stay calm, you see everything. 2 days later, I visited a lawyer, not to start a divorce. Not yet, Jazz. I simply wanted to understand my position. I brought every document I had. The lawyer listened carefully. Then she asked me one question. Are you certain you want to stay quiet? I nodded. Why, Jazz? I looked at her. Because I want to know how far this goes. She studied me for a moment, then she said something I'll never forget. Then don't warn him. I didn't for the next 3 weeks, Jazz. I became the perfect wife. I smiled. I cooked. I asked Daniel about his day. I even asked him about Jessica. How is the new project going? He looked at me carefully. Good. Is Jessica helping? Yes, Jazz. I smiled. That's nice. I could see the relief in his eyes. He believed I knew nothing. That gave me an advantage. Meanwhile, I continued collecting evidence. Then, one evening, Jazz, I found something that changed everything. Daniel had created a new company. The company was registered under a different name, but the business address was familiar. It was our house, Jazz. I stared at the document. Then I found the real shock. He had been preparing to transfer some of our shared assets into that company. The plan was simple. Make the assets look like business property, Jazz. Move them away from our personal accounts. Then, when he left me, he would claim I had no right to them. I sat back in my chair. For the first time, I felt something stronger than sadness. I felt clarity, Jazz. Daniel wasn't simply cheating. He was trying to erase me. He wanted to walk away with Jessica and leave me with nothing. But he had made one mistake, Jazz. He had underestimated the woman who had spent 8 years standing beside him. And now AB was ready to stop standing beside him. The following weeks became a strange performance, Jazz. Daniel acted happier than ever. He started coming home late. He bought new clothes. He went to the gym. He talked about new opportunities. I knew what those opportunities were, Jessica. A new life, Jazz. A life without me. One Friday night, Daniel came home with a smile. We need to talk. I looked up from my book. About what? He sat beside me. For a moment I thought he was going to confess. Instead, he said, I think we need some space. I pretended to be shocked. Space? Just temporarily. I looked at him. He sighed. I don't know, Emma. I feel like we've become different people, Jazz. I almost laughed. Different people. That was one way to describe betrayal. But I kept my expression calm. Is there someone else? Daniel froze, only for a second, but I noticed. No, Jazz. The lie came easily. I nodded. Okay. He looked surprised. That's it? What do you want me to say? I thought you'd be angry. I am. Then why aren't you fighting, Jazz? That question almost made me smile, because Daniel still didn't understand. I wasn't fighting because I had already stopped fighting for him. But I said, Jazz, sometimes people leave because they want to leave. He stared at me, then he stood. I don't want this to become ugly. I looked at him. He walked away. That night I realized something, Jazz. Daniel wanted me to react. He wanted me to become emotional. He wanted me to beg, because if I did, he could tell himself a story. He could say, she was impossible. She didn't understand me. Jazz. Our marriage was already broken. He needed me to be the villain, so I refused to play the role. Instead, I became quiet, very quiet. And silence made Daniel uncomfortable. Jazz. Because every day I became calmer. He became more nervous. I didn't want revenge that involved cruelty. I didn't want to destroy Daniel's life. I wanted something much simpler. Jazz. I wanted him to understand what he had lost. I wanted him to see the consequences of his choices. And most importantly, I wanted to walk away with my dignity. So I created a plan. Step 1, protect myself. Step 2, secure everything. I had a legal right to. Step 3, expose the truth. Step 4, let Daniel make his own choices. I didn't need to punish him. His choices would do that for me. Jazz. The first thing I did was separate my personal finances. I opened an account in my own name. Then I moved only the money that legally belonged to me. I documented everything. I changed passwords. Jazz. I secured my important documents. I made copies of every financial record. Then I hired the lawyer I had spoken with earlier. This time, I was serious. I want to know exactly what I can do, I told her. Jazz. She reviewed everything, and then she smiled. Emma, you are not as powerless as you think. Those words changed something inside me. For months, I had felt like Daniel held all the cards. But he didn't. Jazz. He had money, he had a company, he had Jessica. But I had something he didn't. I had the truth. And truth, when handled carefully, can be more powerful than anger. June arrived. Jazz. The month Daniel had promised Jessica. I knew something was going to happen, and I was right. One Monday morning, Daniel came into the kitchen. I need to travel for work. Where? New York. For how long? Maybe a week. I smiled. Okay. He looked disappointed. You don't have anything else to say? Like what? I don't know. I shrugged. Have a safe trip. Daniel stared at me. Jazz. I could see confusion on his face. He was expecting a fight, but I didn't give him one. That evening after he left, I opened my laptop and I waited. 3 days later, I received an email. Jazz. It was from Jessica. Not directly. It was an accidental forward. She had sent a document to Daniel. But somehow, my email address was included in the chain. The document was a business agreement. Jazz. And there it was. A future plan. Daniel and Jessica were preparing to launch a new company together. They had already chosen an office. They had already discussed their future. Jazz. And the document included something else. A date, June 30, the day Daniel planned to officially leave me. I read it twice, then I closed the laptop. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I simply said, okay, Jazz. Because now I knew. The countdown had begun, and Daniel still believed he was in control. June 30 arrived. Daniel came home early. He wore an expensive suit. I knew immediately. This was the day. Jazz. He sat across from me. Emma, we need to talk. I put down my coffee. Okay. He took a deep breath. I think our marriage is over. I looked at him. Are you sure? Yes. Is there someone else? Silence. Then Daniel said, no. I smiled. It was the first time I had smiled at him in days. He looked confused. What? Nothing. Why are you smiling? I stood. Because I finally understand. Jazz. Understand what? Everything. His face changed. I walked to the table and placed a folder in front of him. He stared at it. What is this? Open it. Daniel slowly opened the folder. Jazz. The first page was a bank statement. The second was a business document. The third was a copy of the new company registration. His face became pale. Where did you get these? I found them. Jazz. Emma. Keep going. He flipped through the pages, then he saw the emails. His emails, the messages between him and Jessica, the plans, the promises, the lies. His hands started shaking. How long have you known? I looked directly at him. Long enough. Why didn't you say anything? because I wanted to see what you would do. Daniel stared at me. I continued. And you showed me everything. He stood. Emma, I can explain. No, you don't understand. I understand perfectly. It's not what you think. I almost laughed. Daniel, I have read every message. He went silent. Then he whispered, you went through my phone. No. He looked confused. Then how? I smiled. That isn't important. He sat down. For the first time I saw fear in his eyes. Not guilt, Jazz. Fear, because he finally understood. I wasn't the helpless wife he had imagined. I had prepared. I had protected myself. And I knew the truth. But I wasn't finished, not even close. Jazz. I placed one final document on the table. Daniel looked at it. His face changed completely. What is this? The house. What about it? You remember when we bought it? Yes, Jazz. You remember whose name was on the original agreement? He stared at me. Then he realized mine. I had purchased the house before our marriage. Daniel had contributed to renovations, Jazz. But the legal ownership was more complicated than he had assumed, and the transfer he had been planning. Impossible, at least not without my consent. Daniel looked at me. You knew, yes, you knew I was trying to take what wasn't yours. He said nothing. I leaned forward. Daniel, you didn't just betray me. You tried to erase me. His eyes filled with regret, but it was too late, Jazz, because I had already made my decision. I am not going to fight you, I said. He looked surprised. What? I'm not going to fight you for your company, Emma. I'm not going to chase you, please. And I'm not going to stop you from leaving. He stared at me. Then what are you going to do? I smiled. I'm going to let you have exactly what you wanted. His face went blank. Everything? Yeah, everything you chose. I stood, except me. Daniel thought the conversation was over. It wasn't. I walked to my office, then I returned with another folder. He stared at it. What's that, Jazz? I placed it on the table. This is the company, Daniel frowned. What about it? You built it, yes. But I helped, I know. No, Daniel. You don't. I opened the folder, Jazz. Inside were documents from the earliest days of the business. Yortmam's contracts, comment introductions, financial records, everything. I had helped create the business, Jazz. But Daniel had never given me credit, because I had never asked for it, until now. You remember your first major client? Daniel nodded. I introduced you. He looked at the document, Jazz. Your second investor? I arranged the meeting, the marketing strategy. I created the first proposal. Daniel stared at me. Emma, you were the face of the company. I looked at him, Jazz. But I was the foundation. He sat silently. Then I said something that broke whatever confidence he had left. I'm not taking your company. His eyes lifted. What? I'm not interested, Jazz. Then why are you showing me this? Because I want you to understand something. I leaned closer. You were never successful alone. Daniel's eyes filled with tears, Jazz. And for the first time, AB didn't feel sorry for him, because the truth was finally out.